tonight on First at 9 this Wednesday, the 18th of February 2026. Bailed. Former Presidential Secretary Saman Ekanayake granted bail after 21 days in remand. Former President Ranil Wickremesinghe granted bail despite insufficient evidence, says the fourth magistrate. Frontier Corporation. Managing Director of the International Monetary Fund, Dr. Kristalina Georgieva, calls for unity among frontier markets.
Have a growth strategy that is more reliant on the creativity and adaptability of the private sector.
Building bridges. President Anura Disanayake to address AI Impact Summit 2026 in New Delhi tomorrow. Head of State holds bilateral discussions with special US envoy to South and Central Asia. Unjust dismissal. Former Deputy Secretary General of Parliament Chaminda Kunaratne files writ challenging suspension without inquiry.
Kalin baby so rupial anuwakata. Kalin baby podi hamotamai.
This is Derana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening, you're joining First at 9 on Sri Lanka's most trusted news source, Derana News Channel. I'm Tarindu Mahendra, joining you live with the latest in Sri Lanka and around the world. In your top story this evening, President Anura Disanayake is slated to address the AI Impact Summit 2026 in New Delhi tomorrow. The president, who departed Sri Lanka to attend the high-level summit, arrived in India yesterday evening. Today, President Disanayake held discussions with US President Donald Trump's Special Representative for South and Central Asia and US Ambassador to Sri Lanka, Sergio Gore.
President Anura Disanayake departed Sri Lanka yesterday to attend the AI Impact Summit 2026 in New Delhi, India. The visit is being undertaken at the special invitation of Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Upon arrival at Indira Gandhi International Airport, the President and his delegation were received by State Minister Sri Raj Bhushan Chowdhury. The 5-day AI Impact Summit has drawn the participation of heads of state from 20 nations alongside delegates representing more than 45 countries. During his stay in India, President Disanayake is scheduled to engage in a series of bilateral discussions with several world leaders, including Prime Minister Modi. Notably, he held a meeting this morning with US President Donald Trump, Special Representative for South and Central Asia, and US Ambassador to India, Sergio Gore. Meanwhile, the AI Impact Summit, designed to highlight India's forward-looking ambitions in artificial intelligence, was ceremonially inaugurated in New Delhi under the patronage of Prime Minister Narendra Modi. In a parallel development, India's 2026 International Fleet Review, themed United Through Oceans, commenced in Visakhapatnam. Indian President Draupadi Murmu participated in the Fleet Review. The naval showcase featured 60 warships, including India's indigenously built aircraft carrier INS Vikrant, and welcomed naval contingents from 72 countries, among them the United States, Russia and Sri Lanka. Representing Sri Lanka were SLNS Sagara and SLNS Nandimitra.
Central Finance
Managing Director of the International Monetary Fund, Dr. Kristalina Georgieva, commends Sri Lanka's current economic stability and the government's continued commitment to maintaining reform momentum. She made these remarks during a discussion with Prime Minister Dr. Harini Amadasuriya today, where both sides reviewed Sri Lanka's economic progress and ongoing reform agenda.
Managing Director of the International Monetary Fund, Dr. Kristalina Georgieva, who is currently on an official visit to Sri Lanka, met Prime Minister Dr. Harini Amadasuriya yesterday at Temple Trees. During discussions, Dr. Georgieva commended Sri Lanka's present economic stability and lauded the government's continued commitment to maintaining reform momentum. The talks focused on sustaining macroeconomic stability and advancing structural reforms to ensure long-term resilience. According to the Prime Minister's office, particular attention was given to the government's program aimed at mitigating the impact of Cyclone Ditwa alongside measures to address ongoing economic challenges. Separately, the IMF Managing Director met Central Bank Governor Dr. Nandalal Veerasinghe. The Central Bank Governor appreciated the IMF for its continued support under the Extended Fund Facility Program and for its active role in facilitating the completion of Sri Lanka's debt restructuring process.
Now, IMF Managing Director Dr. Kristalina Georgieva says frontier markets with similar goals should align in order to better navigate global uncertainties. Speaking in an exclusive interview on our current affairs program at Hyde Park with Indivariya Muwatta during her first official visit to Sri Lanka, the IMF chief noted that there is significant scope for greater regional cooperation among South Asian countries. She further stated that governments of small economies must adopt growth strategies that rely more heavily on the creativity and adaptability of the private sector, enabling them to respond more effectively to global challenges.
Uncertainty is the new normal. For small countries like Sri Lanka, what would be the role of the IMF and how can smaller nations look to the IMF for support?
We have geopolitical factors playing a bigger role today than they did some time ago. Trade policy is changing. Technology is transforming the way we live, the way we work. And then we have on top of it climate change. We collect information from all countries and then we are able to paint a picture where is the world today and where it is headed.
What buffers do you recommend governments to have in order to safeguard its economies and people and remain resilient?
What we recommend is, one, have good reserves, and actually we are working with Sri Lanka to increase the level of reserves. Two, have sound fiscal policy, so you have fiscal buffers when a shock hits, you can protect your people and your businesses. And three, have a growth strategy that is more reliant on the creativity and adaptability of the private sector, because at the time of rapid change, governments have harder time to see through economic opportunities. Businesses are faster to adapt. Small open economies are exposed to changes that others are taking, and this is why my message is get your house in order, keep your house in order. This depends on you. What others are doing you may not be able to influence, but you can influence your own destiny. And we also strongly recommend that small economies align with like-minded. We promote more regional integration. Here in South Asia, there is space for countries to trade more with each other, to build cooperation, economic cooperation that can help them in this world of more significant change. We see it in the Gulf Cooperation Council, we see it in ASEAN, your neighbors here in Southeast Asia, and we certainly would love to see it more right here.
The Kadwela Magistrates Court today ordered that the two brothers apprehended in connection with the fatal shooting of an attorney and his wife in Akure Goda Talangama be remanded until the 4th of March. Meanwhile, police secured authorization to detain and interrogate the Polgas Ovita Dila for 72 hours as investigations continue into the double murder.
An attorney and his wife were fatally shot in Akure Goda Talangama last Friday afternoon. The Western Province South Crime Division apprehended two brothers in Kottawa who were allegedly transporting the firearms used in the killing. Subsequent interrogations led to the arrest of another suspect identified as Polgas Ovita Dila in the Polgas Ovita area yesterday afternoon. The two brothers were initially produced before the Kadwela Magistrates Court and were subsequently detained for further questioning. They were presented once again before Magistrate Aruna Indrajit Buddhadasa today. Nearly 50 attorneys appeared on behalf of the aggrieved party, however no legal representative appeared on behalf of the suspects. The suspects provided a statement before the magistrate in chambers. Thereafter, the court ordered that the two suspects be remanded until the 4th of March. Meanwhile, investigators from the Western Province South Crime Division secured permission to detain and question Polgas Ovita Dila for 72 hours in connection with the incident. Against this backdrop, a group of attorneys staged a protest outside the Mount Lavinia Magistrates Court today, condemning the murder of the attorney and his wife. In a separate development, Derana obtained additional CCTV footage pertaining to another shooting in Jintupitiya, Colombo last Saturday night, where one individual was killed and 4 others injured. The footage shows two assailants arriving at the scene on a motorcycle, approximately 10 meters from a police jeep stationed in the vicinity. A police officer armed with a T-56 rifle was present at the location as part of routine crime prevention and public safety duties. The footage further shows that as one of the assailants retreated from the scene, his firearm discharged, releasing a bullet. Two police officers are seen hiding behind the police vehicle. Although one officer was holding a pistol, no shots were fired in response. The assailant subsequently fled the scene, reportedly passing within 5 meters of the officers. The officer carrying the rifle also did not discharge his weapon. The two officers were later taken into custody and questioned regarding their conduct. They have reportedly stated that their firearms failed to discharge. However, upon instructions of Senior Superintendent of Police Eric Pereira of the Colombo North Crime Division, the weapons were subjected to examination and found to be in working condition. The officers were subsequently produced before court for failing to act in accordance with public safety directives, but were released on bail.
Former Presidential Secretary Saman Ekanaika was granted bail today by the Fort Magistrates Court after 21 days in remand custody after being named a suspect in the case against former President Ranil Wickremesinghe over the alleged misappropriation of public funds. During proceedings, the Fort Magistrate noted that although former President Wickremesinghe was granted bail in the case on grounds of failing health, the evidence submitted was insufficient to warrant release. Legal proceedings against former President Ranil Wickremesinghe over the alleged misappropriation of 16.6 million rupees in public funds resumed before the Fort Magistrates Court today. The case relates to allegations that the former president undertook a private trip to the United Kingdom under the guise of an official visit. Fort Magistrate Isuru Nettikumara today delivered his ruling on the bail application filed by former Presidential Secretary Saman Ekanaika, the second suspect in the case, who has been remanded for 21 days for allegedly aiding and abetting the misappropriation, noting that the former Presidential Secretary had approved public funds for the trip without confirming whether it was private or official in nature. The magistrate took the view that the suspect acted with criminal intent. The magistrate went on to note that the judge who preceded him granted bail to former President Ranil Wickremesinghe, the first suspect in the case, on grounds that he was suffering from a critical health condition. However, Magistrate Nettikumara asserted that sufficient evidence was not established to warrant such a decision. Despite this, the Fort Magistrate stated that since the former president was granted bail, the former presidential secretary too should be eligible for bail, as the law should apply equally to all. Accordingly, the magistrate ordered that Ekanaika be released on two sureties of 20 million rupees each. Subsequently, Additional Solicitor General Dilip Piris, who reported the progress of investigations related to the proceedings, noted that the University of Wolverhampton is yet to respond to inquiries made pursuant to court orders. He noted that despite this being the case, a rumour was circulating on social media that the university had responded, causing the case to fall apart. The Additional Solicitor General stated that legal action will be pursued against parties attempting to intimidate witnesses against testifying. Prior to proceedings, former President Chandrika Bandaranayake Kumaratunga visited former Presidential Secretary Saman Ekanaika in prison. Following her visit, the former president shared a statement on her official Facebook account. She stated that the visit was in objection to what she described as the continued politicization and discrimination within the administrative service. She stressed that while public officials have the right to hold political views in a democratic country, they must remain non-partisan in the discharge of their duties. The former president described Ekanaika as an experienced and capable public servant with whom she had worked closely and said her visit was intended to express solidarity and confidence in his character. Meanwhile, General Secretary of the United National Party Thalata Atukorala criticised the handling of the investigation into former President Ranil Wickremesinghe's visit to the United Kingdom. She pointed out that 5 CID officers had been dispatched to England to conduct the investigation, but reportedly only recorded statements from the Administrative Consul General. She noted that this official, who held office in 2023, had previously been dismissed amid allegations of submitting false reports while serving at the Prime Minister's office during Ranil Wickremesinghe's tenure as Prime Minister. She noted that this official, who held office in 2023, had previously been dismissed amid allegations of submitting false reports while serving at the Prime Minister's office during Ranil Wickremesinghe's tenure as Prime Minister. According to Atukorala, then Secretary to the Prime Minister Saman Ekanaika had transferred the official from the Prime Minister's office following directives from the Public Service Commission. In this context, former First Lady Professor Maitri Wickremesinghe has been summoned to appear before the Financial Crimes Investigation Division on February 20th to provide a statement in connection with the ongoing probe into the alleged misappropriation of public funds by former President Wickremesinghe. Former Deputy Secretary General of Parliament Chaminda Kularatne has filed a writ at the Court of Appeal challenging his suspension without a fair inquiry. The petition names the Speaker of Parliament, the Secretary General, Opposition Leader Sajith Premadasa, Leader of the House Bimal Ratnaike and 14 others as respondents. Kularatne, who was suspended with effect from January 23rd, denies all allegations in a charge sheet issued on February 2nd and seeks its nullification along with an interim injunction to halt any disciplinary action. The suspension imposed by the Parliament Staff Advisory Committee led by Speaker Dr. Jagat Vikramaratne relates to alleged irregularities in Kularatne's appointment. Kularatne previously filed a complaint with the Bribery Commission accusing the Speaker of misusing official vehicles, residences and allowances. Subsequently, SJB MPs lodged a separate complaint alleging interference by the Speaker's private secretary in the investigations. In further legal developments, the Fort Magistrates Court has called for the forensic reports on the alleged forcible entry into several state institutions during the unrest in 2022. When the case was called before the Fort Magistrates Court, police informed the magistrate that the relevant forensic reports are yet to be received. Counsel for the accused urged the court to direct the police to expedite investigations, noting that proceedings have been pending for over 4 years. Accordingly, the magistrate adjourned proceedings until the 27th of May and directed police to submit the forensic reports on the same day. Welcome back to First at 9. Now in your business updates, the Colombo bourse closed in positive territory today as a result of price gains in counters such as Lanka Holdings, Richard Pearce & Company and Windforce. The benchmark ASPI gained 0.16% to close at 23,919.84, while the more liquid S&P Sri Lanka 20 increased by 0.62% to end the day at 6,750.50. Market turnover was 5.663 billion rupees. Foreign participation in market activity remained at subdued levels, with foreigners closing as net sellers, offloading shares worth 182 million rupees. Musharraf Ibrahim from Capital Alliance joins us now with a few thoughts to round off our economic outlook segment for the week.
In January 2026, inflation remains subdued. NCPI headline inflation eased to 0.8% year-on-year, while CCPI inflation stood at 0.6%, with core measures indicating contained underlying price pressures. In the monetary sector, interest rates softened during the week. The AWPR declined by 28 basis points to 9.04%, while the call money rate eased to 7.66%. On the external front, the rupee appreciated 0.2% year-to-date against the US dollar, while gross official reserves stood at USD 6.82 billion at end January.
That's all for tonight from First at 9. Thank you for joining. Have a great night.
From across the nation and around the world, this is Sri Lanka's #1 news source, Derana.